So we're going to talk about getting yourself paid today. Welcome to office hours. And today is not the 10th. I think it's actually the 11th. That's the second time I've done that. All right. So we're going to talk about the dirty word today, which is money. Many of us are uncomfortable talking about money, saying out loud how much, the project's going to cost or what our hourly rate is. I think we mentioned this yesterday on the IC chat. A lot of us were trained not to talk about money. It was unseemly to talk about money. Your doctor certainly has no problem charging you for their services. So we got to get over that. We got to get comfortable about talking about money. We're not in this. We're trying to run a business, right? You're trying to build a business. You're not trying to build a hobby. And a business means you're going to have to charge for your services. So today I want to talk about what strategy do you use to get paid. This is going to be quick and dirty. So let's start with scheduling invoices. So there's lots of ways you can do that, and lots of things that I think about when I'm thinking about how to schedule my invoices. So one of the things is the length of the project. Is this going to be a one-shot deal? Is it going to be a multi-year project? So one of the things that I did, and I really learned this from Matt Feldman, and Matt has a lot, he's got big projects, they're multi-year. And he talked about, like, he writes one contract and it's a multi-year situation, and he just has an out clause. And so I've started doing that for my multi-year kinds of projects. To just assume that it's written as we assume if it's a 3-year project, it's written as if we are going to be the evaluator on that project or whatever it is we're doing for all 3 years. And here's what our invoice schedule looks like. So I've started doing that because what was happening is every fall I was rewriting contracts. I still have to do that, but it was really, really exhausting. I try to think about the scope and how, is it a big project or a small project? That can impact too. So if it's a smaller project, then I might schedule my invoices a little bit differently. So we can talk about that a little bit. And then sometimes you might have a client who wants your invoices tied to deliverables, right? So you can only bill when you've done a specific task. I think in almost 20 years in business, I've only had one of those. And then you might think about whether or not you want to invoice monthly or quarterly. And that may depend on all of these things, right? The size of the project, the length of the project, all of those kinds of things. It may also have to do with your bandwidth, right? Do you have the bandwidth? If you're a one-person shop, do you really have the bandwidth to think about invoicing monthly? I probably default to quarterly, unless it's a small project, which we don't have too many of those, but not that we have like gigantic, enormous ones, but I tend to bill quarterly. And then, so, my husband was in business for like 1 million years, and I was talking to him last night about that. And he said, be sure you talk about the client needs, because the client may have different needs. I just got off the call with the client that I was just speaking to, and she said, oh yeah, and be sure the invoices all pay out by June 30th, because that's their fiscal year. So they may have particular needs. Might have a pot of money that they need to spend. So you might need to kind of consider, you do need to consider that rather when you're talking about billing. There's something else I wanted to tell you about that, but I can't, it's gone. All right. So Dan also suggested that I share with you his philosophy is that you get what you give. So if you manage your business and you are timely and you answer your emails in a timely fashion, or you answer your clients' questions and you're very thorough and you're very organized, that you set that expectation for your client as well. And they are more likely then to pay you in a timely manner. So I thought that was really interesting. And yeah, so I don't know, the yoga picture spoke to me with that. All right, so then think about, due date. Is it, are you expecting to be paid upon receipt, 30 days, 40 days, 45 days, or is there some other schedule? We typically have on our, we use QuickBooks, and we almost always say 30 days, unless the client says, no, we need that to be 45 days for whatever the reason is. And I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be upset about 15 days. So this process of setting expectations around invoices works really well for us. We put that in our SOW. So we have the total amount of this project is X amount. The invoice schedule is below, and we have an invoice table with the dates. We book those dates in our project management system, and we bill accordingly. If on occasion, like it was brought to my attention yesterday by my office manager. So I do have an office manager, and she works like 25 hours a week, something like that. She had her eye on the ball, and she realized, oh my gosh, we were expecting a big check in December and it didn't come. Did you get it? Did you forget to deposit it or whatever? And we tracked it down. And that's when we found out that even though we had reminded the client that I had shut down my office and moved my office back home, that we hadn't received the check. So that's how we found out they sent us the wrong address. But anyway, so follow-up is really, really important. So we try not to be like, we're not nagging people at the 31st day, but a weekish out, 2 weeks out for sure, we're sending an email and saying, hey, this may have slipped your mind, but right, we don't have to do that very often, maybe because we've set those expectations. We really have not had a problem getting paid. We had that one nonprofit last December was a little bit disorganized. We kind of had to chase them down a little bit. So, Matt always does the 5.5 tips. So here's mine. Put your big girl panties on. You're running a business. This is not a hobby. You're going to have to get over yourself and talk about money. Set those payment terms, make that part of your contract, define your invoice schedule, and by God, give them a little grace period. You don't want to, beat people over the head, but you have got to follow up. And the 5.5 tip is get help. When I first started my business and I had a handful of contract, I could tell you every client I had, I knew exactly what the contract was worth. I could tell you what the invoice schedule was. And I am like way, way beyond the ability to hold all of that in my head. So at some point I got somebody to help with all of those kinds of things. And of course, it's got to be somebody you trust, right? If they're dealing with your money, it's got to be somebody you trust. But I would really suggest that you get help. So those are my tips. I hope that was helpful. Here's my contact information, and now it's your turn. And for those of you who are new, we do a quick check-in on your goals. We've been talking about strategy, business strategy for the last, 2 months probably. And those of you who came last time, I asked you, what is your next right thing that you're going to do? And I remember I said, I'm not going to write it down this time. It's on you to be honest. So I want you to share what that accomplishment was, or a place that you were stuck, and any questions that you have about getting paid. All right, so that is it. Let me stop my share and let me figure out how to stop recording.